So how do you mix your gray washes?
By eye.
With your
I
eye?
don't. I don't use like steps. I kind of. It's more in the wrist, I suppose. Like black, middle of the road with some water, and then water, and I just dip between the
And then
three.
you just to get the different shades or the different.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. So this is a different technique. So before we saw with Bob Tyrell that he had the 5 different cups with the black and then the different gray washes. So with Paul, it's a different story. So he has the solid black and then he's able to dip in this is a diluted one. The second one is
Yeah.
diluted and then the water to get his different shades of gray. Speaking of ink, what is the best ink to use if someone wants to make great black and gray tattoo?
Well, every artist has their preferences.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of good inks out there on the market. It's, I guess it really depends on your technique and your approach. There's
Yeah.
inks and there's pigments. Some are thicker than others.
Okay. So I guess every artist just has their own.
Yeah, you try what's out there.
Uh-huh.
I usually wait for things to be out for a while. I don't like to mess with like new products when it comes to ink until I know it's either from a company that's reliable or good reputation, because you don't always know what you're putting in somebody.
Right. And it's
So you kind of let it field test first before I mess with it. I'm using True Tube, True Needles, Derb Morrison stuff. And I've been enjoying that a lot. I prefer magnums, soft edge magnums usually.
okay.
That's what I work with a lot. Because my style is kind of more of a rendering style than anything else. Like my outlines are minimal. I rely more on contrast and
Okay.
things like that. So the outlining I do is mainly just guidelines for me to follow as I'm shading. Any outlining I need to do, I actually do at the end of the tattoo.
Normally other people would do the outlining first and then shade it, kind of like a coloring book, so to speak.
That's the problem, A coloring book is like a prison. You're forced to stay within the lines. You can't really change your mind or let it evolve as you work.
Wow.
You're stuck with what you're committed to. So I don't like to commit. I like to let it invent itself.
That's really cool. And that makes sense because once those lines are on, especially on a tattoo, you can't change them. So then you are confined and limited to not making that change.
I mean, it depends on the style, or certainly they could be a very good thing depending on what you're doing, Just my style lends itself to more about contrast than lines, Like you need something to hold the tattoo together over time. And if you're not going to use outlines, then you have to use strong contrast so that it ages well.
And so at the end of this particular tattoo, will you use a white to create that contrast?
Well, you don't rely on white. White is like an accent.
Okay.
White never stays white, truly, So if your tattoo needs white to work, then there's something wrong. I use white often, but only as like as an accent, because if it fades or falls out, as white tends to do in some skin, tattoo has to still look good as if there was no white in it at all.
Okay.
So I always use it with the idea that eventually it's gonna not be so white,
Mm-hmm.
But I don't really look for it to be white. It turns into like a yellowish, lighter shade of skin.
Okay.
And I'm just looking for that extra value rather than actual white. So.